When tending to a flower garden, you remove pests quickly and you allow the flowers to blossom in their time. That makes sense to almost anyone, right? If something is healthy, you let it grow. If something is damaging the garden, you deal with it early. But in investing, people do the opposite. They pick the flowers early and allow the pests to remain. And I think that is one of the most common behavioral mistakes investors make. Not because they're lazy or don't care or they lack effort, but because what feels emotionally natural in investing is often structurally wrong. So let me give this a simple name: the flower garden principle. Healthy things should be given room to grow. Damaging things should be dealt with early. That principle makes sense in many parts of life. If something is working, you do not interrupt it for no reason. If something is harming the whole system, you do not protect it out of sentiment. But investing is one of those strange areas where human instinct tends to reverse the logic. And that's the point. Good investing often requires behavior that feels unnatural in the moment because the moment is emotional, but the method needs to be structural. Mistake number one: selling winners too early. Let's start with the first half of the problem. When an investment rises, many people feel the urge to do something. They want to lock in the gain. They feel relief. They feel pride. They feel the fear of losing what they have already made, so they sell. Not necessarily because a sound process told them to sell, but because emotion told them to make the good feeling permanent. And this is where a lot of investors quietly interrupt their own compounding. Because people often confuse two very different ideas. One idea is, this investment has gone up. The other idea is, therefore, I should exit. Those are not the same thing. An investment doing well is not automatically a signal that it should be removed. But to your mind, gains can feel fragile. People become afraid that what has been gained can be taken away. So instead of asking, is my method telling me to do something here? They ask, often unconsciously, how do I make sure I don't lose this good feeling? And that is why winners are often cut too early. People remove the very positions that are behaving well. Mistake number two: holding losers too long. Now, the other half of the problem is even more uncomfortable. When an investment falls, many people do not want to act. They wait, they justify, they hope, they delay. They tell themselves they're being patient. Sometimes what they're actually doing is avoiding pain. Because selling a loser feels different from selling a winner, right? Selling a winner feels like giving something back, but selling a loser can feel like admitting failure. And many investors resist that moment. So instead of evaluating clearly, they become so strongly attached to recovery. They stop asking, what does my method require? And they start hoping against hope that one day, their losing position will recover. I'll wait a bit. Maybe it will come back soon. Let's see next month. I do not want to realize the loss yet. Familiar? But later becomes a very useful hiding place. Because later often means I do not want to face this now. And over time, people end up protecting the parts of the portfolio that are doing the most damage. Now, these two mistakes can look different on the surface: selling winners too early, holding losers too long. But underneath, they come from the same source: emotional bias. Gains create fear of giving something back. Losses create resistance to accepting pain. So the portfolio stops being managed by method. It starts being managed by discomfort and pain avoidance. And I think that is the line people need to hear clearly. The portfolio is being managed not by method, but by pain and discomfort avoidance. Because when investors cut winners early, they're often protecting themselves from anxiety. And when they tolerate losers too long, they're often protecting themselves from emotional pain. Different behavior, same root problem. Now, someone might say, well, that's just human nature. Yes, it is, but that doesn't make it harmless. Because these are not small behavioral quirks, they directly shape outcomes. You see, if winners are repeatedly cut too soon, compounding is weakened. If losers are repeatedly allowed to stay, your capital gets trapped in weakness. And over time, something subtle but serious happens. The portfolio may still look active, it may still look diversified, it may still look like things are being managed, but underneath, it's being shaped by backward behavior. Emotions are interrupting what is healthy and protecting what is harmful. And if that continues long enough, the portfolio begins to reflect your instinct more than your judgment. And that is a serious investing flaw. And this is exactly why investing cannot rely on instinct alone, because instinct is not neutral. Instinct tends to move toward comfort. It wants to preserve pleasure and avoid pain. That's human, but that's not a sufficient basis for portfolio management. A sound investing method must include rules that protect investors from their own emotional impulses. That's one of the big jobs of method. Not only to help decide what to buy, but to contain what you are likely to do when emotions become strong. Without rules, people naturally drift into backward portfolio management. They protect losers, they interrupt winners, and then they wonder why the portfolio is not behaving as they had hoped. So the problem is not just emotion. The problem is having no method strong enough to contain emotion. So let me ask you directly, do you tend to cut winners early or hold losing investments too long? Or maybe if you're honest, do you do both? Good investing is not just about selecting investments. It is also about managing behavior correctly once those investments are already inside the portfolio. And many investors reverse that logic. They protect what should be questioned. They interrupt what should be given time. They pick the flowers too soon and allow the pests and weeds to remain. That is backward portfolio behavior. You see, a sound investing method does not just tell you what to buy, it helps stop you from managing the portfolio emotionally. And even when people think they're being prudent, there's another misunderstanding that often appears next. They assume diversification alone is enough protection. And that is where the next problem begins. I'm Juan Casas of Beacon Wealth Advisory. I'll see you in the next episode.